How's it going, everybody? I am here. This is Kraken77 back again, and I want to do a video today on kind of a big issue that Warpath's been having, and I would probably say one of the bigger um, kind of conflicts within the game right now is the collector levels. It's a big issue that people have been kind of constantly kind of beating the drum about some of the problems that's causing within the game. And I wanted to talk about it today. Why now? One of the biggest reasons is because right now I'm basically just fighting in silver and kind of just starting to run into the problem a little bit. I usually don't see a lot of high collector levels at my level. We're trying to get to gold, but what I'm realizing, and I think a lot of people are realizing, is that a lot of even the bigger whales or a lot of the even stronger players are actually trying to get away from the higher levels because, again, the collector level is kind of making it tough for a lot of people. So there's actually a lot of stronger players that are getting into lower and lower conquests because this is one of the problems that is just making it impractical for people to play in a lot of different arenas in the conquest. I think I just saw in Gold 3 there was a player with 1 billion power, which is just incredible. Like there's obviously an issue going on here. So I wanted to talk about a little bit today. It's something that, like I said, we don't see a lot, but now we are seeing it, and I wanted to kind of confront the issue and talk about why it's an issue and maybe some solutions on how they can make it a little bit better for everybody playing. Um, so when we go into the collection levels, go into collection rewards. Originally, this is some of the things that you see. If you're level 30, you're getting a you're getting these buffs here. They don't really seem that big of a deal. Level 40, they don't really. Again, it's all pretty standard as you go across here, even at the higher levels. Oh, this is a little bit a little bit of a bigger buff here, but it doesn't seem like a tremendous problem to give somebody these buffs. Those buffs aren't the actual issue. Okay. What I've been trying to understand here. So as you can see, let me show you a little bit of detail here. So I am level 24 collector, which I'm sadly proud of. It's very small, but if you look down here, it says that I've acquired 1,400 or 1,490 points, um, and 1,480 points just to get to level 24. So this is the number we got to look at here. And I'm going to show you why this is so important. Right now, we're in Silver 1. We're facing collector levels that are right around 50 or above. Okay? So this is what the issue is. So I'm 1480. So if we go all the way over here to around, well, 50, right around 50 or above, they have to be at level, they have to have 6,000 collector points to be at level 50. This is where the issue is. So they're about double than me in collector level, but far more than that, way more than that in collection points. Why is that an issue? Let's go take a look. So if you go over here, I did a lot of this calculating myself, so I'm going to probably go through it rather quickly. So if you go through here, this tells you where you're getting those collection points from. And now we don't know which each base exactly has, but there's a very basis consensus for some different things that you can collect, that a lot of people do, especially if they're collecting points. For instance, when the Legendary Showroom comes out, right, there's an epic base skin, there is a epic unit skin, there is I believe there's a chat bubble. Yes, this is regular chat bubble. There is, everyone knows this. There's two base effects, and sometimes there's a base decoration with it. Otherwise, there is the regular emote. Where am I seeing it here? Trooper mode. Okay, so there's usually a regular emote with it too. Okay, if you add all those things up, that equals 189 points. Okay, not a lot of points if you go to Legendary Showroom. If you guys aren't familiar, there's a lot of big spenders, and I'm not complaining about that at all. Totally, if you want to spend your money on that, super fun. If you got the money to do it, not knocking you at all for that. But so I think somebody mentioned it costs about $900 to pay for all the packs you can buy. After that, they just spend their normal gold. And so typically they'll save up into over 1 million plus sometimes and then just buy a significant excuse me, significant more tickets just with gold, and they will basically have a tremendous amount of coins and stuff to buy uh, what is it, the collector level or classic level base skins they can buy. They can buy a bunch of the other epic skins, base skins they don't have, right? So this is what they do. Again, I'm not knocking it. And that's how they can acquire so many different sets and things. Okay, so that's part of it. So it's about 189 to own a set. Why is that
Where am
important?
I?
Let's take a look at this.
Someone spent. Boy, I saw someone just
So you
like
go up
me.
here to the skin sets, and this is where we have to start scratching our head a little bit as free-to-play players or, low-spending players. Okay, so here we have a base set, right? Legendary Showroom opens, you buy everything on the thing. You have this. Sometimes they don't come with the decoration. And again, this is kind of why I have a channel to explain things you can't really explain this that well in typing in the chat on Warpath. So this is what I'm here to do, try to explain this. That's why this is such an important situation. So remember, all of this, if they buy every single one of these, they acquire this, they get 189 collector points. It's not a big hit. This is where this starts to get an issue. Then they acquire all of these buffs just to own this set. Okay? Now this is where we have to start adding up. When you're facing somebody of a higher collector level, a way higher, and their unit hits your unit, and your unit disappears, turns to dust, and you hit their unit, and it barely scratches the armor, and you're thinking, what's going on here? Is the game broken? No, this is what the issue is. Okay, so they're acquiring these skin sets or these different collector sets. They're acquiring these buffs. Now, doesn't seem like a lot, and I think originally it wasn't a big deal. But now as the years go by, and you acquire more and more of these. So for instance, at 189 collector points for this, you the difference between my account, level 24 collector, and a level 50 account is roughly 23 of these sets. That's the difference. 23 of these different sets as you go through, more and more sets, right? And this is just a rough estimate. It's probably slightly more. Okay, 23 of these sets. What does that equate to? Okay, roughly. So typically what they'll have is they'll have a universal 2% buff for any kind of troop, whether firepower, HP, and then another 4% buffs for an individual unit type, and then a universal 1% buff. Okay, so what that equates to is just between level 24 to 50, 46% of an individual troop buff, 46% for another individual troop buff, spread across, or you can add those together to be, what is that, 92% for individual troops. They get a 46% buff to all 5 different unit types. All 5. Navy, Air Force, infantry, tank, and artillery. 46% across the board. They also get a 23% base in troop, either damage resist or damage intensity. That is a really big buff, just from level 24 to 50. Okay? That's why it's so important. That's why this there's this huge difference that's becoming more and more. Um, Again, 46%, it's roughly 23 of those sets, and you can kind of do the math. That's 23 23 times this, 23 times this, 23 times this, 23 times this. So those buffs become massive. Okay. That's why there's this huge difference. Not to mention, those small collector level buffs. Oh, geez, my game freeze. In this. So I'm trying to air that out a little bit to players like myself who are going, what is going on here? Is the game broken? Why is this such a big deal? And I'm just going to point this out. I haven't technically seen this 100%. Level 50 is 6,000. When you get to level 80, which some of the bigger players have for sure, it's 12,000 over double what 50 had. When you get to 100, you are now at basically a times 3 of level 50. Again, all those buffs are then doubling and then tripling. That is a tremendous, tremendous problem. Um, and what the biggest problem I have with it is one of the biggest problems is that their all-time power is unaffected. So you could have somebody with, these massive buffs, and you are completely the same power, but you're scratching your head as to why their troops are so much stronger than yours. That's my problem, and it's my biggest suggestion to Warpath with this issue, is their power needs to be reflective of these massive buffs. Okay? It doesn't make sense. This is a strategy game. It's all about designing your units. You have advantages. Okay? It doesn't make sense to be against someone of the exact same power and you have absolutely no ability to compete. Quite frankly, you don't even understand why there's an issue involved. That's not strategic. That doesn't make sense, right? You need to apply a certain level of power to all these buffs and then bump their power up. It makes sense if I'm losing a fight against somebody who's won, 100 million power more than me or more. I understand that. Okay, it's very simple. But when these are basically a phantom buff and you're giving them these monster buffs and there's no affecting their power, again, how does that equate to being a strategy game? That's the problem here. And that's why this is such a big issue. Again, we're now running into 50 level collections. I know, there's lots of players with 80 to 100 million plus. Or, I'm sorry, level 100 or more plus. It's a tremendously big issue that's impacting Warpath, and quite frankly, that's why you have a billion power bases fleeing Legendary into Gold 3. This is a big thing that needs to change. Um, and just to highlight, some of the entire what is this the entire modern war tech tree. I mean, if you just look at some of the buffs that this is giving you comparatively, altogether, I think it gives you 60% firepower. Um, let's see here. So there's 20 here, 10 here, and another 30 here. So you're looking at 60% firepower, 60% HP. There's a 15% damage intensity in here also. Where is it? Somewhere in here. Oh, I'm sorry. So the artillery damage resist bonus. So that's usually they have all troops involved, tank, infantry, um, artillery. Planes aren't included in here as far as damage resist against planes. So you have a 15% damage resist, and then you have a 10% universal buff. But I'm just trying to show that, these buffs are comparative to an entire modern war tech tree, and they're not even influencing their power. It's just crazy to be facing up against people with these advantages against you, and the game's not even, in my opinion, being open about it. as to why that difference exists, why the difference exists in that situation. They need to be, I think all these buffs need to have power associated with it, and that base receives that, you know, bump in power that's quite significant. So that's really a big problem that I've been running into, and quite frankly, it's very disheartening to try your best to compete. And, I'm a kind of a low spender. I do spend money on this game. Um, so you're trying to be strategic. This is a strategic game. They just created a strategy team for players. How do you equate that to being a strategy game, but then giving people massive buffs? And you can't even, it's not even straightforward about it. There's not even a power change for these players. So that needs to change. It's throwing off the game. If these people, if you give them that extra power, at least it makes sense strategically why they have the advantage. Okay, that's my opinion, and I think that needs to change relatively soon because I think people are getting really fed up. I know a lot of people. I fear a lot of people are trying to leave the game because of it. They can't compete. At least be straightforward about what's going on with their power. Give them a power bump to reflect these massive, I'll say, call them phantom bonuses they're receiving, it don't make sense. So I would say be straightforward. I asked Warpath to be straightforward about it. Bump these people power up. And again, one of the big problems is matchmaking. Well, when you have a big group of people, when you have 10, 300 million bases and on one team and 10 on the other team, but then one has massive collector levels, right? When you apply that power increase to them, that will also help matchmaking as they will line them up with bases that are a little closer to their effective power rates. Very simple. It's a huge problem going on in Warpath, and this is just a small piece that I think could help a little bit in that solution. So that's my take on it. And for those people who are struggling against high collector bases, wondering why, this is a big piece of that, of why they're so much stronger. And I think Warpath needs to step in and actually apply some power, increase their power to reflect that. So that's what I'm saying. Again, I can't really fault Warpath entirely for providing those buffs, but they at least need to be accountable in bumping up those people's powers significantly accordingly to what buffs they are receiving. So that's my take on it, guys. Hopefully that helps some of you that are facing these bases, wondering what's going on, and hopefully maybe you guys can like the video or share that opinion, and hopefully Lilith or Warpath can, actually start reflecting some of those power buffs in people's all times power, and that can help. So thank you guys for watching, and if you like, please like and subscribe. I'd love to do some live streams and answer some questions people might have. But so yeah, have a good day, guys, and have fun.